Welcome to Cat Sheet Gaming. This is Cat Sheet 1383, and I wanted to cover a video on Saints Row, the reboot to the Saints Row series. And they kind of had to do that, especially after the fourth one, and they kind of went overboard with, I guess, was the fifth one, which was Gat Out of Hell. But I wanted to give this brief first impressions because this game's gonna take a while for me to get through now that I'm back in school and working at the same time. So it starts out as a whodunit sort of storyline, and then going back several months to where your character or the boss was employed by Marshall, a private military contractor, and for all intents and purposes, a gang in the city. So they have a recruitment video that you watch to set the tone. So far, the game has felt like a cross between 2 and 3 in terms of that. So at first, the shooting mechanics felt solid for the most part. It wasn't until I got to a part with an armored APC that I started to have some issues with the game. And it kind of left a bad first impression. It gets better after that, but for whatever reason, when they designed this portion of the game, they made this APC exceptionally weak and vulnerable to small arms fire. An APC, as in an armored personnel carrier, that are designed to take small arms fire. There's no explosives or anything like that. It's just extremely weak. And you can see in the clip that I'm showing right now, it drained in a heartbeat. And I had to do this part 3-4 times. And there is eventually an RPG which you have to take out quickly. But it was just constantly doing this one part over and over again. And it felt like it wasn't very well thought out. Instead of having the APC hold its position so we can take out the characters, or actually make it so it can, take some gunfire. Eventually, yes, I noticed the explosives on the balcony, which at one point I got a little too zealous and I kept shooting before they were ready to be shot and kill all the guys up there. But when I finally did it, I had to get really, really aggressive, and I had to almost die on multiple occasions just to get to the part where an APC would survive and I can get into the gunner seat. And this isn't the only occurrence that happens in the game either. So I do like the boss's dialogue. It's kind of sarcastic, along with something similar to that of Saints Row 2. But it definitely has the goofiness that is Saints Row 3 in it, for sure. But let me fast forward past the initial gameplay when we get to the open world part. I just wanted to point out that APC part. If you play this game and you run into a similar situation like I did, don't let it discourage you. Yeah, it's kind of poorly designed, but just move past it. So it is fun for the most part, and I'm glad they kept some aspects from 3 that weren't in other games like Saints Row 2 or even Grand Theft Auto, like being able to hijack cars by jumping through the windshield. And the cars handle pretty solidly, even the slow ones. And like I said, the shooting mechanics are pretty tight for the most part. There are a couple times I'm sort of a bit iffy on that, but other than that, it's pretty solid for the most part at this point. That may change depending on if I find more weapons later on in the future. I do like the sort of smaller-esque city that they have the game take place in versus a whole entire, what's supposed to be sort of a New York or Detroit. And they definitely took some aspects from both the Saints Rows, or all of them, along with some from GTA, and built upon that. And so far I'm having fun for the most part. I'll get to that part where I'm sort of a bit irritated at the game. It still has side missions like the previous Saints games, and some of them I haven't unlocked yet, so I'm not entirely sure if they'll have all the same missions that they had in previous Saints games, or similar missions. I mean, in some cases I know they do. I just unlocked the insurance fraud missions. And I started building my gang or organization. And they're doing it in a actually kind of a neat way versus what they did in the past. So, let's go with some of the things that I kind of, I don't know, let's say negative for all intents and purposes. The game is glitchy. That's going to happen with an open world game, but in this case, they're actually kind of noticeable. I haven't recorded all of them because sometimes I just stopped recording and kept on playing. But in some cases, I'm seeing some weird physics issues with the cars where I had one car ram the back of my car but flew up 20 feet in the air. It's not game breaking and it was semi amusing, so I just sort of laughed at that. And one of the nicer things is you can run into things like, let's say, trees, and you'll go through the trees instead of slamming your car and coming to a complete total stop. Bit unrealistic, but I kind of appreciate it, to be honest, especially after playing Grand Theft Auto, and particularly with Cayo Perico, where you get stuck on leaves in a branch, not the branch itself. But I did find something out in the middle of the desert involving some barbed wire. Let me play the clip. So here I am out in the middle of nowhere, found a barbed wire fence, and I was just running through, and I just passed through the barbed wire fence. There's zero collision mechanics for the barbed wire. I don't necessarily think that's a glitch. I think that's just something they probably weren't sure how to do. Do they make it a solid wall? I mean, it's barbed wire. It shouldn't behave like a solid wall. And again, also getting the physics right so that it would wrap around your car if you went through it, or just snap, might have just been a little bit, I don't know, hard to do. So they probably just left it so that you passed right through it. It's not game breaking and it doesn't ruin the game, at least it doesn't for me, but it's just something I noticed. One thing that did bother me is the health system. I get the whole segmented health system, and you can only replenish part of it or some of it at a time. But the problem is they don't have means of you regenerating it outside of using your special Saints move, which you can see by that purple circle smack dab in the middle. It does a special move and you regain health. I mean, there's skills later on that help negate that, but it's kind of it feels completely unbalanced for the player in this case. And I might add, it kind of takes away from other parts of the game. So they have FBs, or freckle bitches, in the game. It's their, I guess, revamp of freckle bitches. They just call it FBs. But they're non-functional, at least at this point. I don't know if they are later in the game, but as of right now, you cannot interact with them, even though they're all over the place. You can't buy food, then use the food to refill your health bar. It seems like a given that you should have done something like that, but they didn't. Now, the other aspect that I kind of been having issues with is the AI. And it's a trend that I've seen happen since at least GTA 5. And that's sort of what I would consider lazy AI design. That being that the AI doesn't do anything all that smart. It just makes them so that they're super accurate. If your AI has laser point accuracy with a weapon that's in the player's hands, spreads out at fully automatic, but when they use it, goes in a perfectly straight line, you're doing something wrong. At least in my book, you are. And they definitely do that in this game. And I think it's terrible. It's not the worst, but there are some situations in which it is a high detriment to the player. And I sort of wonder how you're supposed to play the game in higher difficulties with such game design. And I've been seeing it more and more often, particularly with Microsoft games, like in Gears 5. You crank up the AI difficulty, or in general, they're always accurate, but you crank it up, they're even more accurate, and on top of that, they fire at a higher rate. And if you ever watch my Halo Infinite series or review series, it's literally the same thing. Even on normal, easy, they're just super accurate. It's like they didn't even put any thought into the AI. They just sort of stand there unless they melee attack you. Now, in some cases, they do run away, but that's after you kill a whole bunch of them. Unlike, let's say, Halo, where they dived and ducked out of the way, or in some cases, attempted to retreat and get to other AI in order to stand their ground against the Master Chief. Here, they don't really do that. And it's a trend that I find disturbing and kind of quite lazy, in my opinion. I have a friend who said, how would you make it more difficult? Well, I already mentioned Halo, where they dived and ducked and retreated when things weren't going their way. And then you have games like Fear, where they would, take cover and shoot at you. In some cases, they would, have one guy shooting at you while the others tried to flank you. I mean, it's sort of weird that they've literally gone backwards to AI from the 90s/early 2000s. Basically, brain dead AI that just run in a straight line and have perfect aim. I mean, if they're using the same gun and it spreads around, like when the player uses it, it should do the exact same thing for the AI, instead of letting them have laser point accuracy. So it's not really that much of a problem. It is an irritating issue, in my opinion, at times, but it rears its ugliness in one particular side mission or side activity that you do, and that's called riding shotgun. So in riding shotgun, you obviously ride in the passenger seat. In this case, you go onto the roof as well. Now, in this game type, you're supposed to shoot whoever's chasing you, and as you shoot the people chasing you, the car repairs as you destroy them. On top of that, in order to get health, you have to climb back into the car. Now, here's the problem. You made the AI super, super accurate. They're using pistols while driving with one hand and shooting you. That should not be a thing in any game. GTA did that bullshit with the helicopters, where you have guys flying around with perfect aims using pistols out of a helicopter. That's unexcusable as far as I'm concerned, and Rockstar should be ashamed of that game design and should be making efforts to change it, but I know they're not going to, because that requires actual work. It goes for the same for the AI with the police or any other AI or gun they're using, especially if it's automatic. I don't care how close you are. That thing's gonna spread all over the place if you're going fully automatic or going ham on that trigger. That's why I brought up the AI issue being laser point accurate. In this case, they spam way too many cop cars. And this mission that you see right here is the very first shotgun mission. It's the one you have to complete in order to unlock more riding shotgun missions. On top of that, I'm pretty sure it's glitched. You can probably see it on occasion, maybe if I let a clip play long enough, that when you destroy vehicles to replenish your vehicle's health, it doesn't always replenish your vehicle's health. On top of that, it takes way too long to get in and out of the vehicle. So let's say you take too much damage, you now have to climb back into the vehicle so that you don't die. So now they start shooting the car instead. In which case, it doesn't take them long to destroy the car. In other cases, the health just never replenishes. Right now you see that it did, and I'm holding off the cops, but you'll probably see that just out of nowhere, like my car's health will just disappear completely, like in a heartbeat. Like you can see it happening right now. So ideally I would get out and start shooting them while on the roof, but like I said, they're laser point accurate and they will destroy you in a heartbeat. And I found myself having to do this one over and over and over again as a result. In some cases, I would have the car at halfway, right? And then just out of nowhere, it was just completely empty all the way. And it'd be instant death. And it felt like she hit something, but I couldn't tell because I'm always facing backwards. And the part you just saw there where I was on the roof, I was actually trying to tell it to get back into the car, and sometimes it just doesn't seem to want to respawn and get back into the car. That's why I think this particular side mission is kind of on the glitch side. Along with the cops being able to have super accuracy while using pistols in one hand while driving with the other, and in some cases damage not being repaired when you take out cop cars. So fortunately, this one is actually by far the worst that I've experienced. Even the one that follows up to this isn't as bad as this one was. But this one, I don't know why. It was just really, really bad. And in general, this side mission is just not fun because of the super accuracy that you get from the AI. The other activities don't seem to have this problem, so I don't get it. But let me just reassure you that it's just like the worst side mission in the game. The others are fine. They're fun. There's even like the one right here where you intentionally provoke them into a firefight. Doesn't nearly have that same issue. I mean, I just started out the game and I probably shouldn't have been playing or doing what I did, which is intentionally leaving 1-star reviews at organizations that certain games protect, and then they come after you. I did it on the max difficulty and had no problem. Well, I shouldn't say no problem, but nothing nearly in comparison to the shotgun or riding shotgun missions. I let it kind of turn into a rant about what I would consider poor game design and poor AI, and not so much about Saints Row. So, it is a fun game. It's similar to other Saints Row games, if that's up your alley, which it is for me. And I'll probably attempt to do a review on this. I don't know. In the future, we'll see. But give the game a try. It's fun. And I think for the most part, if you like GTA, you'll probably like this game. Especially if you like the other Saints games, you'll definitely like this game as well. And I will probably buy it again when it comes out on Steam. I'm not a particular fan of the Epic Store, and I like having the achievements, so that's why I want to wait for the Steam version. But there might be a reason for me to buy it on Epic Store. We'll see. If you made it this far into the video, thanks for watching. Have a good one.